you have your three centers, Rome, London, and of course DC, where the financial elements are in London, and Rome, of course, is the Vatican, where they're running the spiritual thing, and then of course they're using the military wing as far as the USA. The United States, basically, and especially in the past 20 years, our military was being used for their objectives, not for the United States of America.
Hey friends, Sean from SGTReport.com and SGTReport.tv here. That was author David Perkins. He's a great guy. And friends, there's so much going on, as you know, with the censorship and the deletion of my YouTube channels and the termination of my Patreon account. I've got a whole bunch of things I'm working on that I want to share with you. But I wanted to release this interview. I did it a few days ago with David, and it's been sidelined because of all this drama going on. But it's a really, really interesting conversation about a great book he wrote. It's so interesting. We get into the realm of the Bell, the UFO technology, all of that stuff. I think you're really going to enjoy this one. Guys, before we begin, just a couple of notes. SGT Report is on Odyssey. I don't know if you know that. Odyssey.com, fantastic platform. If you create and verify your own account there, you'll earn library tokens just for watching my videos. Of course, I'm also on BitChute and Rumble, and most importantly, SGTReport.tv. If you want to help support this work in lieu of Patreon acting like the tyrants they are, please become a member at SGTReport.tv. You'll get all of the exclusives. You'll get everything. And it's got a secure server, so they can't censor me anymore. And the last note, guys, if you don't want to be censored, if you don't want to be tracked and traced online, then use the Brave browser. It's free, it's faster than Google's Chrome, way faster, it has a built-in ad blocker, and it will never spy on you. You're going to love it. I will leave a link to the Brave browser below. Download it, install it, and use it. You're going to love it. And let's begin, friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's absolutely fantastic to have you guys back. There's been some personal things going on in my life, and for those who know that story, thank you so much for your well wishes and your prayers. I really do very much appreciate your support. Today, guys, we're going to take a break from all of the current news, the heavy news. It's coming at us as fast as we can possibly try to keep track. Even those of us that are trying to keep track are struggling. But let's put it this way, the Great Awakening is real, and the bad guys are being revealed. Guys, I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. What if I were to tell you that the story of the Nazis scouring the world for ancient religious artifacts, as depicted in Raiders of the Lost Ark, is absolutely true? I've on the line Dr. David Bryant Perkins. His book is Hitler's Astrologer, and it explains how the Third Reich used astrology and the occult. David, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
It's a pleasure to have you on. So, the story begins with Magna Goebbels finding a Nostradamus text stating exactly when Germany would start World War II. But let's not start there. Let's start with how you were inspired to even do this research and write this book. You met a man in the park where you often played chess, a man named Helmut, who happened to work in a department of the SS called the Dark Sun, but you didn't know that when you met him. Take us to that day in the park, will you?
Okay, well, we were playing chess, and he said, hey, your German's pretty good, but you're not German, are you? And I said, no, I'm from Texas. He goes, oh, you're an American. You know, when the French captured me, they treated me like a dog. But when the Americans came, they treated me like a human being. And I was going, God, thank God some lieutenant did it right. And we got to talking. Of course, I was writing for a newspaper, an astrology column. And everybody's going, yeah, that's Herr Perkins. He writes for Bilderfrau. And he goes, oh, well, you know, I worked with astrology too during the war. And he started to name off Himmler, Hess, and a whole bunch of other people that I'd never heard of. And of course, my dad was in the military. I was very familiar with World War II. I was fascinated by planes because he was a navigator and a bomber. So I got to talking with him and was fascinated by everything he was telling me. And this went on for about 6 months or so. And of course, I didn't think I would write a book. It was more or less like, you know, Bugs Bunny. Ooh, tell me more. But then when he passed on, I met some of his colleagues who were working in the same division, the Black Sun. And I said, wow, I got to start writing this down. And that's what led to the investigation of going to libraries in Berlin and Nuremberg and, of course, Hamburg, which is where I was living. And when I came back to the States in the year 2000, that's when the Library of Congress went online, so I was able to further research it from there.
So when you were in the park that day and you'd met Helmut, hey, by the way, guys, you're going to be able to get this book for a very special price here, $1.99 download. And David has been kind enough to offer to split the proceeds with SGT Report, so $1 from every copy will go to sgtreport.com to help me and my little team, and I very much appreciate that. We'll leave the link below this interview. So when you met Helmut that day in the park, he showed you his ring, and on his ring was the name of a castle, which turned out to be the headquarters of Himmler's SS. The engravement on his ring read, how do you pronounce that, Wellsburg?
Yeah, Weidewils. It's an actual castle that Himmler took over, and that was sort of not only a headquarters for the SS, but it was viewed as a religious area as well. What a lot of people don't realize is that the Nazis were not just a political party. They were trying to take over every element, really, of life, economic, religious. And that's where they had, like, for example, the wedding ceremonies, which were where the wedding ceremonies take place of the special, the SS officers who were actually called out in order to like mate with several different women in order to increase the Aryan race population there. Since I mentioned that, going a little bit further before the book, there were several, Homer wrote about Atlantis, with flying machines advanced, and of course the deluge happened. There was another person named Rebroadcast who wrote about almost the exact same thing, but he said it occurred up in north, and it was called Thule. Basically the exact same story, where healing crystals. They were doing genetic experiments, mixing people with animals. And when the deluge happened, he wrote that they went to northern India and Tibet, by his descriptions, and that's where those people mixed with the local population, thus forming the Aryan race. And that's why Himmler sent all those people there in order to, what you see in Raiders of the Lost Ark, doing archaeological digs, because they believed that that was where the Aryan race started, and that's where the belief came that that's why they were descended from the super people.
Well, that's very interesting. You went to this castle yourself, and you saw this insignia on the ground. Is this the symbol for the Dark Sun, for that division of the SS?
Yes, it is, and that's actually the symbol that was on the ring that he had, and you can see it all over the internet.
So let's get back to this idea that Raiders of the Lost Ark is actually real. They were searching for more than just religious artifacts and knowledge. They were uncovering more than that in these excavations. The Nazis were actually looking for an element they believed existed that allowed gods to travel to Earth. Now, we get into a lot of religious areas here with this type of thinking and this type of belief system. But tell us more about what the Nazis were looking for specifically. Do you think they were really looking for the Ark of the Covenant?
Well, that I don't know, because let you know, that never came up in our discussions. Basically, what a lot of people don't realize is that when they were building the Orient Express, that was going from Berlin to Baghdad. And, the British are often given credit for discovering a lot of these ancient texts from Samaria. And actually, the German engineers actually found it about 20 years before the British even did. It's just the Germans kept it secret. The other thing is that, of course, on their translation of Sanskrit, which the Germans had it advanced on as well, they were already reading about venemas, which, anybody can go Google that, as far as, there actually supposedly are some that are buried. There's actually descriptions in these Sanskrits on how they work. So they were already on that thing even before Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I only use Raiders of the Lost Ark as a reference. I can't account that everything in Raiders of the Lost Ark as far as, what they did in there. It's just that it's a similar approach that the Nazis were there in, in the mid 30s. And actually the British kind of threw them out before the war happened. So there's a whole area of history that can be described on that. But yeah, basically they were there, northern India and Tibet. There's pictures, as you showed there on the video, of them, measuring people's skulls, digging up, for ancient artifacts, as well as interviewing. In fact, on that video that you showed, it actually has a picture of the Dalai Lama meeting one of these guys with his little Africa Corps helmets and stuff on that. So, my research touched on to that because basically I was pretty much focusing on, the astrological elements of it. I mean, you can go, yeah, there it is. You can actually go down all kind of different rabbit holes as far as people ask me, well, what about the spear? What about this? What about that? I was only able to research what I was able to verify. And one of them, of course, the big one that everybody wants to know about is the Die Glocke, which is German for the bell, which is, pertaining to, UFO craft and all that. The only things that I found was that where they were supposedly making this, it was called the Great Area, and that more concrete was used to develop that system of underground tunnels than all of the underground bunkers that were built from 1942 to 1943. And the other thing is that there was a lot of mercury being sent there, and of course, mercury is one of the elements that are supposedly in this device that was either able to levitate and defy gravity.
Well, that's actually what I wanted to ask you about, so I'm glad you brought up the bell. That was next on my list because, if Helmut said what they were trying to find was the element that allowed gods to travel to Earth, one does wonder if they were able to create some sort of essentially UFO technology, anti-gravitational technology, like the bell. We have these pictures of, well, I just showed one, of what appear to be UFOs, disc-shaped flying machines, and it's just really a piece of lore at this point. In human history, we don't know exactly what the Bell program was. I don't know. Can you shed any more light on the Nazi Bell?
Well, the interesting thing that I think about it was there was a crash in one of the forests in New York, Kecksburg, Pennsylvania, and the description of this thing was exactly like the bell. They said it was acorn shell, but you can go on Google and look at that. As far as I believe there was a radio DJ that everybody was calling in talking about this thing that had crashed. Of course, the government was there to quickly overcome it, but a few people got a glimpse of it, and from their description of it, it was almost exactly like the Nazi bell. So it goes beyond whatever we can say because there's all kind of speculation on it. And like I said, I only wish to remain on the area that I know that's a fact, is that supposedly it was developed in an area which, of course, all the scientists that were working on it, murdered that were working on it. And of course, I could go on all the speculation that's all there, that, it was shipped to Antarctica, where supposedly there's the Nazi base there. And, when you have the accounts of Operation High Jump with Admiral Byrd going there and fighting off these things that destroyed all their airplanes that were on the aircraft carrier that they had there, and actually losing his ship. I let everybody else make their own, opinion or decision on what they want to believe from that. But I just try to stick, at least in the book, with the facts that I was given either firsthand or from the documents that I read.
All right. Well, you cut out there for just a brief moment, David. Did you say that many of the people that worked on the Nazi Bell program were murdered?
Yes.
Okay.
There's supposedly 256 scientists. Well, the person that I've centered on in the book, Carl Ernst Kraft, he actually served his purpose. Because see what happened when they bombed Peenemünde, where they were working on V2 and other projects. He was actually called in, even though he was under arrest. Karl Kraft is the astrologer that Magda Goebbels hired that we talked about earlier. He altered Nostradamus text. He made horoscopes of Patton and Montgomery by the high command in order to determine their personalities or their quirks. And then after Peenemünde got bombed, he was there because he understood planetary motion, he understood trajectory and all that. Because a lot of the scientists got killed in Peenemünde, they called him up to help out with the math. And after he fulfilled his usefulness, they sent him to. He was on his way to Buchenwald, which is where he died. He died on one of the trains that was going there. So basically that's the source of information that I have is based on, what he had spoken. That I got either from Helmut, who had that knew him, or from what's recorded as far as the documentation of what occurred there.
Okay, so Karl Ernst Kraft was going to be sent to a concentration camp, and he died on the train on the way to that concentration camp. All right, so stars, Nostradamus, Karl Ernst Kraft, the Swiss astrologer. So Magda Goebbels finds a Nostradamus text stating exactly when Germany would start World War II. So then her husband, Joseph Goebbels, enlists Kraft to help interpret other Nostradamus texts for propaganda purposes. What I think's interesting about Kraft's life, and getting back to the bell, you just mentioned that Kraft was enlisted at some point to work with von Braun on the V2 project. And as you know, so many of those Nazi scientists were brought to the United States under Operation Paperclip. So one does wonder how much hidden technology existed that then was brought into the fold here in this country, in the form of dark projects at NASA and elsewhere. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and Werner von Braun himself, when asked, he said, "How did you get all these advancements?" He said, "We had help from them." But also on Operation Paperclip, they show a picture of 50 or 60 scientists for jets and rockets, but Operation Paperclip brought in a lot more people than what's been known on that. They were put in chemistry, banking, industry, corporations, even the CIA. When they brought them over, that's why they turned it out of the military and made it a civilian-run project by Dulles, who has a lot of connections to the Nazis as well. And of course, the justification was, these guys have been, working against the Russians. They have most of the intelligence, and we need them. So you'd be surprised on Operation Paperclip how many Nazis were in the CIA when it got started up as well.
Well, that doesn't totally surprise me, David, because I am aware of Prescott Bush's involvement in helping to fund the Nazis. And then his son, George Bush Sr., one day to become president, was the head of the CIA, the director of the CIA. So again, Prescott Bush, the Bush family, Nazis. Do you want to talk a little bit about the connections there?
Well, yeah, and it is a big part because Prescott Bush basically, from Harriman Brothers, he made a rise. They're all skull and bones. They had a banking thing that actually directed money to the Nazis through, let's see, there was Crump was one steelmaker, Tyson, or I have it on there. I'm drawing a blank and stuff on there because I'm trying to get ahead of myself. I actually have an article in the book on how that bank was penalized for trading with the Enemies Act because they were still exchanging gold, taking gold out because Tyson fell out of favor. There's two big steel makers, Crump and Tyson. Tyson fell out of favor with Hitler, so he was getting all this stuff out, and that of course went to Bush, who just kept it as far as the bankers. So they put all the money to Germany in order to help developed the Nazi Party, and then when they saw that they were losing, they took all the money, of course, out. So it wasn't oil. This is even before they made their money on oil and everything. It was in banking, and a lot of that is Nazi gold. And like I said, in the book, there's an actual article that shows that they were caught for trading with the enemy. Because before Pearl Harbor, it was legal to do that. It was legal to trade with Germany. But once we declared war on Germany, and then Germany declared war on us, and we returned that, it was illegal. But they still continued to trade. That is, Prescott Bush continued to trade with the Nazis even after that, and that's what they got caught on. Of course, there's a lot of stuff off the books as well.
Do you think the Third Reich actually was defeated, or do you think the Third Reich was just brought into the shadow government? The Third Reich still exists in some way today.
Yeah, I think Germany was defeated, but not the Third Reich. They basically came over and create. I feel the basis for what we would call the shadow government. And of course, good guys in the CIA and the bad guys in the CIA. And if we say the bad guys were basically doing the dirty work for the cabal, because you have your three centers, Rome, London, and of course DC, where the financial elements are in London, and Rome, of course, is the Vatican, where they're running the spiritual thing, and then of course they're using the military wing as far as the USA. So the United States, basically, and especially in the past 20 years, our military was being used for their objectives, not for the United States of America.
Well, let me ask you this. Have you heard any of the rumors about Adolf Hitler and his bloodline? There's this article from David Icke. Was Hitler a Rothschild? He says, take the Rothschilds, the bloodline formerly known among other names as the Bauers, one of the most notorious black occult bloodlines of Middle Ages Germany. It became known as Rothschild, Red Shield, or Rothschild in Germany in the 18th century, when a financial dynasty was founded in Frankfurt by Mayor Amschel Rothschild, working in league with the Illuminati, House of Hesse, and others. Your thoughts on that? Was Hitler a Rothschild or related to the Rothschilds?
I believe that's certainly possible, because if you look at all the discussions in that area, there was supposedly somebody that fathered or grandmother and all that kind of stuff, and that is the way those ruling families, let's just say, operated, in that they will father children and then use them as their plan, because they're consistent of supposedly having the blood in, even though it's not pure. Now that's why they intermarry and everything in order to keep their bloodline pure, which really goes back to the time of Nimrod as far as particular bloodline. You have the 12 tribes, if we're going to go back to Samaria stories, and even in the Bible, that you have the 12 tribes of Israel. Well, supposedly the descendants of Nimrod represent the 13th, which is a mixture of all the royal bloodlines of the earth, which is what they hope to have to be the seed of the Antichrist. And that's one of the reasons they feel they can overcome them, because they have the bloodline of all the royal families of earth, even Native Americans. It's, I believe, what's his name? The guy that wrote the CIA, it's on the CIA documents, that Hesmeyer or whatever his name is. It's quite fascinating reading when you see everything from there, what he was trying to say as far as how they operate. And once again, it's not whether or not we believe it, it's the fact that they believe it shows that that's what we're fighting against.
Yeah. Powers and principalities beyond this world, I think. These people worship a very, very dark power. And it's funny how they've played both sides of every single war, right? They profit no matter who wins, no matter what war they start, they play both sides, and the bankers win every single time. The bankers win, and the bankers,
Exactly.
and now they control the world. They control the world because they control the world's printing presses and all the debt that's been issued, all the bonds. It's all a big banking scheme to enslave humanity through paper debt. And it needs to be stated and restated that the Bush family played a pretty darn big role in the enslavement of humanity. And they've been in bed with the bankers going all the way back to Prescott Bush and probably before. I don't know the family history before that, though.
Yeah, I pretty much, for my research, just looked at from Prescott and all the stuff that he did. And he is connected with some of the big names that we know, like Rockefeller. Plus, there's a lot of others, like, for example, Harriman and all that. They're all connected to even some of the big names that we don't know, like the Pasteur family, which came over from France when the people were losing their heads over there. Louis and Marie Antoinette. Well, she got one of her sons to America and had agents and stuff, and he ended up buying up all the railroads, which turns out to be the money that was used in order to start the Federal Reserve. So that's been in there since the formation of our country. Yes, it probably goes back hundreds of years and stuff, even before that. And I mean, even how the Rothschilds made one of their biggest things of money was after the Battle of Waterloo. He had agents on there and actually spread rumors and lies that Napoleon had won the Battle of Waterloo. All the stocks went down, and so he bought them all up, pennies on the dollar. And of course, several days later, the news came out that they had won. All the stocks and everything went back up, and he just doubled, well, more than doubled, tripled his money 10 times. So that stuff, if you can imagine, have been going on for centuries, to where even if you looked at it today, wow, who is investing in COVID or situations that COVID would do 2 or 3 years ago? There's a lady named Amazing Polly who showed a video of some people, like, in Europe, the EU, and they were all talking about how do we control the narrative for the virus. And this was months before it even came out. So, a lot of the things that we see that people react to, it's been planned a long time ago.
Well, yeah, what you just described is absolutely true regarding the Rothschilds and the Battle of Waterloo, and they were so proud of it and braggadocious about it. They made a movie about it starring Boris Karloff called The House of Rothschild, a big-time Hollywood movie starring one of the biggest actors at the time, Boris Karloff, playing Rothschild.
If they had any sense, it's you they'd be following around, not me.
Oh, we Rothschilds have had just as big crowds following at our heels in Frankfurt, but not with cheers.
Well, I'll cheer for you, gladly. And I hope one day Europe will realize she owes you something more than money.
Well, my father was a man of peace. He told us never to loan money to make wars, always to end them.
Hey, one last question for you. When we think about evil, and we've been talking about the Bushes, I always like to remind people that the Bushes created the Clintons. Okay, we have the Mena, Arkansas, CIA drug running when Bill was governor of Arkansas. So many names on the Clinton body count list that I would be remiss not to mention the Clintons when we talk about this evil. And have you been following the story here with CIA whistleblower Alan Howell Parrott about SEAL Team 6 and the Obama, Biden, Clinton
With
treason?
the father of one where he was talking about how he ran into somebody that was actually at the town where that happened, and said it was a setup, that the reason that Benghazi they let them fall is because that the ambassador Stevens there found out that they were running weapons to Syria because Hillary had invested in the pipeline. And of course, the Syrians didn't want that to happen. So, yeah, that's all coming out. I saw a video on that as well, which is the on a newscasting thing where they were speaking to the journalist, And then I also saw the video to where what the journalist was reporting on, which was where the father and the other journalist that was there that uncovered that, yeah, they were set up because they knew that they had not killed the real Osama bin Laden, that he was sent there to Pakistan, but then right at the last minute, he was brought back to Iran. And so when SEAL Team 6 went in there and they came out, they found out it wasn't them. They knew they were marked because they were the ones that knew. And sure enough, they were sent on a mission to quote unquote rescue somebody, and it was a setup. In fact, one of the Stinger missiles that brought that helicopter down that had SEAL Team 6 came from Benghazi, which Clinton had sent there. So yeah, anybody that can speak up against them, they seem to disappear. And I just hope it gets out. I'm waiting to see which mainstream media news outlet breaks that story, because right now everybody's just talking about the emails from Hunter, but I think this is the much bigger story.
It's a huge story, and we'll keep our eye on it. I'm just not too hopeful that the mainstream media will give this any light at all, because it really would be the biggest story of the past decade if Clinton actually gave the order to take down Extortion 17. That was the call number for the chopper that had SEAL Team 6 on it, aboard it. An old Chinook, too. It was not the type of helicopter that team would ever use. It was absolutely a setup. It appears it was a hit. And that whistleblower, Alan Howell Parrott, calls it the most wicked thing imaginable. So wicked what happened there, and we have to pray for justice because it was treason.
Agreed. I'm sure you're concerned about the media. However, Mark Taylor said a long time ago is that they're either going to have to clean their act up or they're going to disappear. I saw 2 instances of that happen with Nancy Pelosi being grilled and then another one. So it's maybe hopefully they will start, because they're going to fall aside when all this comes. And I know it may be getting close to the end. I would like to give a shout out to the gentleman that turned me on to your program about 3 years ago as the awakening sort of happened, at least on media, and that's Charles Coward. So Charles, thank you so much for turning me on to SGT Report.
Yeah, thank you, Charles. I appreciate that. And I appreciate your time today, David. Thanks so much for reaching out to me. Again, guys, the book is called Hitler's Astrologer. You can get it for $1.99, and I will leave the link below so that you can do that. Do you want to shout out your websites for folks, David?
Yes, it's just my full name. It's David Bryant Perkins. That's the middle name is B-R-Y as in Yugoslavia, A-N-T as in Tom. David Bryant Perkins has all the work that I do, because naturally everybody who read the book said it'd make a great movie, so I wrote a screenplay on it, and actually got into writing screenplays, and wrote some other ones as well, because it was a lot more fun writing those than a book. And of course, there is a link onto that to the website that's totally devoted to Hitler's Astrologer, which is just hitlerastrologer.com. But the main one is my personal website, which will lead you to anything that you might find interesting on.
All right. Well, very good. David, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Sean. It was truly an honor to be on your show, and God bless you and all the work that you're doing to get the truth out.
Oh, thank you. Well, no, the honor's all mine, and thanks for sharing this history with me. A lot of this I did not know, and it's a fascinating read. I think you guys will really enjoy the book. Again, the link is below. You can get it for $1.99. Guys, thank you so very much for listening. We really appreciate you guys. And I'll remind you, for real news every single day, visit us at sgtreport.com, the antidote to corporate propaganda 24/7. God bless, guys. Bye-bye.
God bless.